please.
Donna Corbin-Savinsky.
Here.
Kevin Zorda.
Here.
Virginia Higley here. Robert Chagnon.
Absent.
Jane Smith. Carrie Ann Wagner-Howe.
Here.
Marie Pisner. Kelly Hemler.
Here.
And Marcy Talicio.
Here.
And I would like to seat the alternates for tonight, since we have missing agents.
You have to have an extra pen, would you?
Fire evacuation procedures. Excuse me. There's an emergency in the building and we need to leave. You can exit the door to my left, go out the door, down the stairs and away from the building. Or another quick way is through the back door, down the stairs and away from the building. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next on the agenda is public participation. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak regarding items not on the agenda? Anybody want to speak regarding items not on the agenda? And one last time, does anybody want to speak regarding items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we move forward. Correspondence. In our packets, we received a new updated commissioners list for all the different agencies. We received a memo from Roger dated March 16 regarding our agenda items. We have an email from John Cabibbo regarding his comments for IW 545, which we'll be talking about later, and Rogers regarding 545, we'll discuss later. There was a memo from Karen LaPlante, Conservation Committee, regarding 585, which was handed out at our last meeting. And we got some documents from Pullman and Comley Attorney and some new site operations and maintenance plans for that application as well. And then on our desk, we received an email, it looks like, from Pamela Schweitzer on application 585, which we'll discuss later. And that's about it. And on a listing of all the items that were received for that application, which is quite a bit. So a nice detailed plan from Jen. Thank you. Commissioners' correspondence. Anybody have anything? To my right? No. To my left? No? Okay, moving forward. Approval of minutes. We have on here March 6th, but was omitted from the agenda was February 20th. The last meeting we just tabled them, so I'd like to take them off the table so we could vote on those.
I move that we approve the minutes of February 20th meeting.
Second.
Roll call?
Donna?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Virginia, yes. Carrie Ann?
Abstain.
Kelly?
Yes.
Marcy?
Yes.
5 in favor, 1 abstain, motion passes. Then we have March 6th.
I move we approve the meeting minutes from the March 6th meeting.
Second.
Roll call?
Donna?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Virginia? Yes. Carrie Ann?
Abstain.
Kelly?
Yes.
Marcy?
Yes.
5 in favor, 1 abstain, motion passes. Minutes are approved for the March 6th and February 20th. Next on the agenda is old business, public hearing IW 585 0 King Street application for proposed development consisting of 2 buildings, 500,225 square foot distribution building, warehouse space and office space, and 125 square foot flex building, DF Realty LLC owner applicant. So we're going to continue our public hearing from our previous meetings. And we do want to make note that we should close the public hearing today because it has to be closed by March 29th, and we don't have any other meetings to meet that deadline, so we'd have to close it today to meet the deadline. So just a note. So do we want the applicants to come first, or?
Yeah, and if I could, just one housekeeping detail. We also handed out to you tonight a front and back list of everything that's in
Yeah.
the file. I just wanted to make note of that for the record, that we're incorporating by my stating and on the record all of those items if they hadn't been particularly noted in the past.
Perfect, thank you. Okay. Gentlemen?
I think you have to do roll call for this too, right? You have to do
we
roll
have to do
call
roll call
again
again
for
for
the
the meeting?
public hearing.
Okay, Donna,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Virginia, yes. Carrie Ann,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Marcy.
Yes. Okay, good. So, some notes. Oh, where did I do
Well, I think the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you.
it? Yes, welcome.
Should I be using this microphone or should I use the handheld? Does it
That one,
matter?
if you're sitting at the table, is
Sure.
good. If you say your name and address. for the
Sure.
record, then-
My name is Mike Ceccarulli. I'm an attorney with Pullman and Comley. Our offices are at 90 State House Square in Hartford, representing the applicant DF Realty. Our firm's been retained by the owner and applicant in connection with the development of the property. Would just like to introduce some of the experts here tonight, which you probably recognize. Michelle Carlson, to my left, Director of Land Development for BL Companies. Also with us are Jessica Bates, who's Senior Civil Engineer with BL Companies. Rachel Highland, who is a Certified Associate Ecologist and Wetlands Professional in Training. Eric Davison, Wildlife Biologist, Professional Soil Scientist, Professional Wetland Scientist, and he's with Davison Environmental LLC.
Welcome.
Thank you. Also here tonight is Mark Fontaine, who's a principal with the applicant. So I'm sure you recognize Mr. Fontaine. So I do have resumes and CVs for the experts. If it's not inconvenient, I'd like to submit them into the record for your review. Sure. Thank you, Michelle.
Let's take them and stamp them.
So just by way of background for this property, for anybody in the audience and for the record, site overall is 133 acres. It's zoned I-1. The plan of conservation development identifies it as proximate to the I-91 corridor. It also identifies the property as within an area for potential industrial development. And I would submit that the proposed use is consistent with the future land use plan and for the plan of conservation development in general. And essentially all of this area is under the future land use plan deemed to be industrial except for the existing residential subdivision on Kings Court. The proposed development plan is only a fraction of the identified maximum development potential of the property, specifically because the applicant is seeking to absolutely minimize potential wetlands impacts. This property has been used as farmland for a long time. It's been 65 years at least that it's been used actively for farming, including some of the wetland areas have been impacted by farming, constantly tilling and cultivating. We actually have a board which we can set up for you that actually shows aerial screenshots throughout, from 51 on. I don't know if that's something that we can conveniently put out.
Were these same materials submitted earlier?
I don't believe, these are aerial maps from the GIS, historically. They're from different sources, but if you,
No, because
I don't believe they were submitted.
what was submitted was a whole bunch of presentation boards.
This I don't believe was submitted. This was just produced in the last day or two.
Yeah, yes.
Oh, you have this
Oh,
already?
yeah, those are all already in the record. Because if you didn't submit them, we're going to have to mark them as exhibits, but those are all submitted and made available to the commission.
We'll take a look, and if it's something that we can submit
Yeah.
into the record, we'd like to. I think it's illustrative just to see how the property's been constantly farmed. In 2008, a proposal for a much larger project with 9 buildings, and which also included property that is not part of this application, was approved. That property had frontage on Mullen Road as well. This was several 100,000 square feet more than what's being contemplated today. In 2014, a prior owner of the property attempted to rezone this property to residential.
Sir, if you could, we don't have that one, so we're just going to.
Oh, I apologize.
You want to
Please.
name it, we'll mark it as Exhibit 1.
Sure, this is historic aerial plan from BL Companies. It shows photographs of the site from a satellite view from 1951, 1970, 1995, and 2016. It's hard to see from there, but if you... Oh, you can see it. Okay, great. So I apologize. As I was saying, a prior owner tried to rezone this property as residential. And unfortunately, this was denied, in part because the zoning commission determined that they wanted this site to remain industrial. It's always been the intent, and it seems consistent with the plan of conservation and development. So with regard to this application, I'd just like to emphasize that no variances are required for this application. All of the proposed development is in conformity with the zoning regulations and does not require any relief whatsoever. Based on earlier meetings with, I believe, the town planner, from what I understand, the applicant had proposed a larger complex. They had originally contemplated a 615,000 square foot building and the 100,000 square foot building to the southwest. Through the course of those conversations, and I trust the planner will correct me if I'm incorrect, that the 100,000 square foot additional size that they were looking for, a second building essentially, or a larger building, would be removed, and they would proceed with a smaller application, smaller footprint, smaller impact.
Okay, wait a minute.
This was not a formal submission. This was an informal consultation that they held with the town earlier on in the ART process.
Okay, so the application that was for the 500 and the 100,000?
Correct, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
So the current application, which you've seen from day one, has been
Okay.
intentionally,
Okay, just
yeah, of course, for clarification. It's intentionally held back some of the square footage that they had contemplated under the original development plan.
Did we ever get confirmation of the fact that it was to remain industrial, or where is that in writing?
There was a denied zoning commission decision from a prior owner.
I don't know what the point is in going back through like ART, but when the original drawings came in, you had a building located in a vernal pool. So my suggestion was that you probably wouldn't want to apply to our Wetlands Commission to approve a building in a vernal pool.
I think that they took your recommendation very seriously, and yeah. So, of course, during the hearing process that's been before you now, the applicant's also taken action to reduce the footprints of the building, or actually it is the footprint size specifically by 30,000 square feet. So,
That's an issue because the cover letter that Michelle submitted with the latest set of plans says that each building is reduced and you added a mezzanine, but the building footprint on the latest set of plans are exactly the same as the January set of plans.
I understand the comment that was in the some email correspondence to us, and I appreciate that the drawings are so scaled that it's difficult to perceive the distance of the footprint change. I'm assured that the larger building footprint was reduced. This 20-foot, it was a 28-foot, I believe, reduction in the footprint on the southern side, and there was also an 18-foot reduction on the smaller building.
The building's going to be 500, 225,000 square foot, and then the other one 100,000, 125,000.
Those are the areas shown on the drawings. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
It was confusing because when we read the thing on March 14th, it said they got reduced.
But those didn't change from your January submittal, so on.
I'm assured that they were. I was assured that they were changed, but I'm going to call Michelle Carlson to.
But I'm just saying, sir, they weren't changed, and if you want us to get out the January drawings and we'll compare them, they didn't change.
We'll get to it shortly. I appreciate the planner's notes, and of course we already had some of those comments earlier that we've tried to respond to, and I think Michelle's going to do her best to try to go through each of those. So just to summarize what I was trying to explain about the prior iterations of this project and what they were contemplating doing with this site, this is in total from what they had conceptualized, not necessarily applied for, but they have reduced this by 16% from what it was originally conceived of. And that was trying to fit this in with the wetlands and make it compatible with the wetlands that are on the site. So just to go through some of the wetlands impacts that are being considered here, our clients had a soil scientist resurvey and reflag the property to accurately identify the wetland soils throughout the site. Your GIS map, which is based on the town's approved map, indicated almost 30 acres of total wetlands on site. Our resurvey showed 3 acres more in the net. So we're showing approximately 33 acres of wetlands on site, 3 of which didn't exist based on the information the town had on file.
Did you bring us that comparison map?
I believe that was submitted as one of the boards.
Yeah, that's one of the boards that was submitted to you.
What you submitted was based on soils versus field observation. What we had asked for was a map of the wetland map and your field observation.
I believe that was submitted as a board. So the teal on that map, as far as I see it there, that's
Submitted, sir, was on-site field observation versus the hydric soil. You don't have the official wetland map on there.
The hydric soils are the existing wetland map, and then the field observation are the changed.
So you're representing that.
The blue is the town, mapping.
This is the official town
The
map?
blue. And then the.
I'm sorry, this is Michelle Carlson. We should enter her in the record
Yeah.
to the extent that she's going to be responding.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Carlson. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut. I'm the director of land development at BL Companies, located at 355 Research Parkway, Meriden, Connecticut, and also Constitution Plaza in Hartford. I work in and out of both offices. On the map there, which I think you're looking at there, the bluish color is the town mapped wetland system, and then the pinkish is the field delineated system. I think the confusion is the semantics of what we're calling it on the board.
The legend is
Right, you didn't label it that way.
the legend is perhaps, yeah, using different nomenclature. So the original design presented to the agency proposed approximately 2.5 acres of direct impacts to the map wetlands. On February 23rd, our team submitted revised plans with a number of revised reports. These incorporate a substantial number of changes addressing the comments and concerns of this agency, and also those of the Conservation Commission. In addition to the revised plans, there was submitted a revised wetland report, revised stormwater management report, and revised post-development calculations regarding hydrology and hydrologic movement. The applicant's latest plans decreased direct impacts to only 0.71 acre. So that's a little over 7/10 of an acre. This represents a more than 70% reduction in the proposed disturbance to wetland areas. This site is designed to be neutral with regard to the hydrology and to wetland areas throughout the site to the maximum extent practical. No significant changes are made in water balance. All confirmed or potential vernal pools are preserved, and site design is going to maintain hydrology. At this point, I'd like to have a couple of our experts speak for you to just run through some of these changes to the extent necessary to make it clear to you. And so I'm going to ask Michelle Carlson next to me here to just run through some of the developments that occurred.
Good evening. Michelle Carlson again. I'm just going to put the site plan, the existing site plan up on the board, which we submitted. I'm just going to go through the changes from the last submission to now, just so that we're clear. I'll start over here. This proposed building footprint was decreased. We actually took 18 feet off of this side to get out of the wetlands here. The submission back in January had some fill in here in the wetland system. We've moved out of that. We're no longer proposing any fill in this area. This particular building was further down to the south and was impacting this wetland system. We pulled this 30 feet to the north. So while the square footages remain the same, it's because a mezzanine has been added inside the building for office and storage internally. The building footprints have changed. If you do look and you compare the applications, you'll see that this driveway does come down into this wetland. But because of the scale of the drawings, it's hard to tell if you're only moving it 30 feet. And another change that we made in conjunction with this is previously we had this area all parking. We were filling in this farm. This is a farm field right here. This is all farmed right now, but this is considered a wetland. So we took the parking out of this system and moved it up here. So that was the two major changes that allowed us to decrease the wetland impacts. So now all of the direct wetland impacts associated with this application are due to driveway crossings. There's no direct fill for buildings, parking. It's all for driveway crossings. Up in here we have 0.26 acres. We have a crossing here. There's already a farm road here, but this wetland system runs north to south throughout the whole site. It has to be crossed at some point to get over to here. So like I said, all of the direct impacts now are associated with driveways, and those are the major changes. And what we did do by taking the parking out of this farmed field, this wetland that we were not touching this part, we are planting with upland plantings around it to provide a little bit of a buffer.
And I think you reduced the road, right? From 32 to 30?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you want me to go through the memos? Okay. I'm also in, we have the Conservation Commission comments that I could respond to those. Essentially, that's contained in, I don't know, do they have a copy of what Diane wrote or not?
No, that wasn't submitted.
Okay, that wasn't submitted. So I'm going to just go through.
The response to Conservation Commission was submitted to the file. And
Conservation
the
Commission was submitted.
does
So
have it.
I want to just go through the Conservation Commission comments and our response to those comments. I think a lot of the comments are taken into account as we've gone through the iterations of the application. I'll just respond to them in order. Do you have the commission comments in front of you? Because I don't really want to read those. I'd rather just respond to the individual comments.
They also have the responses in front of them.
No, but you do have the conservation comments in front of you, right? So I'm just going to go through our responses to each one, but I'm not going to read the conservation comments. In response to the first bullet point, the parking lot in the rear of the larger building is no longer in the wetland area. I just went through this. We've reconfigured this parking area to pull out of the wetland area, and the building footprint, as I've talked, has been reduced. We've pulled the building 30 feet toward the north. The next bullet talks about the stormwater management basin. The stormwater management basin to the east of the proposed building, which is the right-hand side of the large building if you're looking at the board, will receive pretreatment of stormwater by flowing over the grass filter strip currently located at the back of the proposed trailer parking spaces. The stormwater will be treated through a filter strip as well as through the nutrient uptake by the plantings in the stormwater basin. The utilization of a formalized sweeping plan, filter strip, and wet pond stormwater management basin will achieve an 80% TSS removal rate for removal from the stormwater discharge. This design is in full conformance with the 2004 Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual. Although we believe this design will work as well or better than a hydrodynamic separator or mechanical separator, it's always better, the intent of the DEEP manual is to use natural renovation and detention wherever possible. If the commission feels it's warranted, we could always add a hydrodynamic separator into the treatment train as a condition of approval. That answers the second bullet. And the third bullet, The hydrodynamic separators have been designed in compliance with the 2004 Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual to treat the water quality flow, also known as the flow associated with the first flush of stormwater discharge, to remove the total suspended solids generated by the area draining to it. The hydrodynamic separator utilizes an internal baffle system to bypass the larger flows through the system without the resuspension of any hydrocarbon or sediment previously removed that's in there. And this also removes floatables, anything that's involved in the first flush goes through there. And then in a larger storm, none of that stuff gets flushed out of the hydrodynamic separator. It's contained in that separator. The next bullet, the parking areas and roadways will all be curbed, except for the one area to the rear of the large building where we're proposing the sheet flow over the grass filter strip into the detention area.
Just for the agents, she's reading off from their letter dated March 14th from Pullman and Comley.
Yeah, you all have that in front of you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Also, next bullet, it's not anticipated that any trucks will be washed on site. If for some reason that were to change and a user came in that wanted to wash trucks, they would have to come back before this commission to allow that. So that's not part of this application. There'll be no truck washing on site, no truck washes. Next one. 5 potential vernal pools are present on site, and they'll be protected from construction activities through the use of core log silt fence and by matching post-construction overland discharge flows to the existing pre-construction conditions. Plans for the development of the property will not cause any change in water directed toward the vernal pools that are present now. The vernal pools on the property are generally situated within existing wetland systems, and all construction activities will be located outside the vernal pool's 100-foot critical habitat envelope. Additionally, appropriate upland habitat for obligate vernal pool species is not present within the agricultural fields and is limited to the forested areas. As most of the development will occur within the existing agricultural fields, impacts to the appropriate upland habitat for vernal pool species have been minimized. Furthermore, the proposed landscaping plan aims to enhance the existing upland habitat area of the vernal pools by reforesting open areas to the American elm trees on the property. If there are American elm trees on the property, they would be located within or directly adjacent to the wetland areas. There'll be no clearing in the wetland areas, and care will be taken to avoid the destruction of any of these trees found outside of the wetlands. Any large specimen trees will be identified and protected to the extent possible during construction. The next bullet, while there are pines, oaks, and sycamore trees present on the site, the larger trees are typically located to the southern and eastern portions of the site and forested areas that have historically been disturbed less. Little to no work is currently proposed in these areas. Forested and emergent wetland creation areas were previously proposed in these areas and would have required the clearing and grubbing of the existing forest for the proposed wetland creation areas. The establishment of such new wetland forests could potentially take years to accomplish. As a result, these wetland creation areas have since been removed, and all clearing of forests for the construction of new wetlands is no longer being proposed on site. Instead, focus has shifted to preserving and enhancing the existing forests, which will help to protect the larger trees on site. Additionally, the proposed landscaping plan will also aim to reforest portions of the agricultural fields and enhance existing forests by introducing new native species and promoting species diversity throughout the site. And the last bullet that I'm going to speak to is endangered, threatened species of concern will be regulated by the Connecticut DEP. In the upper, I believe it was northeast portion of the site, there was a hit on the Natural Diversity Database, and what we found was there were hits for the box turtle and the wood turtle, and neither of these turtles have been seen on this particular site, but that circle falls within the site. And the sighting of these turtles doesn't preclude development of sites. What it means is that during construction, you have to implement measures prior to starting construction to make sure that the area is cleared of any turtles if they're seen, that they're picked up and they're moved outside of the construction work area. And I believe there might be some restrictions as to the time of development because of potential nesting, but Rachel could answer that question to let me know if I'm right or wrong. But I know that what we do is we come up with a language in the construction documents that talk about how you have to manage the site and look for the turtles and do a sweep for them, on a regular basis. And that's all I'm going to answer to. I'm not going to respond to the last bullet, which talks about talking to residents. And then
Michelle, there were some other comments from the planner that were submitted to the client over the last couple of weeks. Do you think you could run through those and try to provide some guidance?
yes, I was also copied on an email from Roger dated Friday, March 16th. And he asked Mark a couple of questions, and I'm going to go through those. Stormwater management operations and maintenance plan, how will the commission be assured that it will be done? The O&M plan, has monitoring, cleaning, maintenance, and record-keeping requirements that have to be done and kept on site. Anybody can come in from the town and look at those records. I mean, we're not going to be submitting annual reports. It's not required. I'm not sure the town has the capacity to review annual reports, or if you regularly now receive annual reports from developments across town. But they will be on site. And as a matter of fact, the Connecticut DEP, through their general permit process, we also have to register this site with them once it's during construction, obviously, for management of stormwater during construction activities and how we're going to manage that. And there's record keeping that's required after every storm event, weekly inspections, and those reports are kept on site during construction, and they can be viewed by the Connecticut DEP, by the town staff, whoever wants to. Post-construction, the state of Connecticut also has a general permit registration for stormwater associated with either commercial buildings or industrial. And that registration has to be done post-construction. And that includes, your SWIP, your operations and maintenance plan, and it has the monitoring, the inspections, the cleaning schedules, and all those documents are kept on file, on site. Connecticut DEP can access them anytime they want. You're not required to send them to the state, but they can come on site anytime they want and say, I want to see your monitoring program. So,
if I can just interrupt, what's the penalty for not complying with that?
Oh, you get fined big time. We actually have a client that was not in compliance, and they had so many days to get in compliance. So that answers the first segment of questions. And then the final one in that was, will you post an annual maintenance bond? No. I mean, they're going to be required through their permits to be doing the proper monitoring, maintenance, and oversight. Where will you plow snow such that it will not impact wetlands? We did put together an exhibit that shows a snow removal plan that I can flip to. But basically, we're going to make sure that all the snow is stockpiled away from the wetlands, and any snow melt either ends up in a separator or in our swales or detention ponds before it ever would get to the wetlands.
Yeah, and we usually put those on the site plans.
Yeah,
Just
it's,
do like snow
I can
piles and-
submit it for the record, and then I have a small one.
And signage
Yeah.
as a condition.
Yeah.
Yeah, we usually have signage. It's like
As a condition.
Yeah.
Is that something that's usually indicated at your site plan review process, or do you typically make those comments at this board?
This board meeting,
Okay.
yeah.
We make it a condition of approval.
Correct. Yeah, and I gave you, I just, Mr. O'Brien, I gave you the 11 by 17 too. The blue areas, okay, the blue areas highlight where snow will be stored, and in the event of a crazy snowstorm, I mean, like everybody else, they'll either have to truck it off, or it'll be put on a section of pavement and not in a grassed area. It's not going to be dumped into the to the wetlands.
A good staff person always asks what the commission wants to know. I've been sitting here for 2 years. I've never seen an application where they didn't ask where you were plowing snow.
Yep,
And where the,
Especially this
the
year.
sign is going.
This March, especially.
and where the sign is. We usually put a
That's, I'm
sign
going
in.
to get to that at the end. Yep.
Yeah, we always ask.
We also showed Bowens Brook on the plans. Obviously, it's to the west and south. It runs through the wetland system on the west and south of the property. Okay, the other questions that Mr. O'Brien had was, while you have added a significant number of trees, two concerns. You show tree removal in the wetland buffer areas. Why can this be eliminated? In response to that, we're only going to remove trees that are necessary in buffer areas to facilitate the development. We're not going to remove any additional trees. Your 100-foot zoning buffer areas need to be along all your property abutting the residential zone. And that's
More of a planning and zoning
Yeah,
issue.
I just
but
want to
I
say that
just
that's
let you know about it.
that's duly noted. We weren't planning on planting the 100-foot buffer to the residential where it's already forested, but where it's
You don't show anything on the map, that's all. You just show it blank, and then you show where you're going to
Yeah,
put
we-
a row
we-
of trees.
we
So
will
if
fully
there's something
comply.
there, you're going to have to show what it is.
correct. Yes, we will fully comply with that regulation. There's no like
That's the
attorney.
planning and zoning.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we're going to fully
Only
comply
to
with
the
that.
extent that it impacted tree planting in general.
Yep.
That's the only reason
Okay.
if I'm looking at it, I'm not going to say, oh, I'll remember to tell you about that
Right.
when I see the next time.
Right, and then you see, yeah, he said the next comment was the buffer is a 100-foot planted area, not a 100-foot row of trees. See example in zoning regs. I understand and will fully comply with the zoning regs. There's no issues with that.
It's not in our purview, but zoning is watching, I'm sure.
Understood. And then the next comment was the wetland comparison map the commission was looking for was the
dealt with
official.
that already.
Yep, we dealt with that. Elevation drawings for the buildings, none were submitted.
I stand corrected on that. Back in October, you
Correct.
submitted bare bones ones. They weren't included in your latest thing. We did go back and look at them, but your floor plan is basically blank. It's like a building with nothing, and then you do have what a building will look like, but no specifics. So yes, you did submit something way back when in October, but it's subsequently didn't go forward in any of your
Because
others.
the intent of the elevations remains the same, what it's going to look like. Even though the buildings both shrunk a little bit, we didn't resubmit the elevations because due to the scale of the drawings, you really wouldn't even notice that in the floor plan.
The concern was more, are you going to have an asphalt-based roof with pebbles, or are you going to have grass on the roof, or, what are the things that would impact the wetlands? Are you going to have floor drains in the building? And since we don't know either of those things, it seemed like at the minimum, that's a condition of approval that if at some point in time when you know those things, you're probably going to have to come back.
Understood. I will, those are some of your comments, and I'll work through those. The next comment was, we have no details on the roof composition. Typically with buildings like these, it's either standing seam metal or a membrane roof. Those are the two types that you'll find on industrial-type buildings, and that's what it'll be.
To a certain extent, that's going to be tenant-driven.
Correct.
Any requests that they
Right,
have.
but there's not going to be asphalt shingles on a 500,000 square foot industrial building.
No, I wasn't talking about asphalt shingles. I'm talking about the tar,
Oh, yeah.
tar
no,
and pebble
no.
roofs.
Yeah, no. That will not be. The other thing was connection points for downspouts. That'll be driven, on the final architectural elevations and the tenant, where they're going to go, but the detention systems, the hydrodynamic separators, everything's been sized to handle the runoff from the roof. So they will be taken care of. And then the next question was, what's the velocity coming off the roof? Basically, it's going to hit the roof, and it's only going to come off the roof as fast as it can go down the pipe. And the pipe, is going to drop down 30 feet. And that's what's going to dictate the velocity, is how fast it goes down the pipe. The pipes that come off the roof are sized appropriately per the area of roof that they're going to take. That answers, that's our answer to that question. Parking, number of car spaces provided is exceeded by 37. We're not exceeded by 37. We actually, when you go between the two buildings, we only have one extra parking space when you look at the parking on site, and we'll have to comply, per zoning with parking. Then the next question was,
I took that off your table.
okay,
The table you have on there says required X provided Y.
correct, and we're looking at it as it's one total property. So for each building, there's a requirement based on the size of each building. The site as a whole meets the parking requirements.
Do you have that plan to go to? Because that's not what you presented.
that's more of a planning and zoning issue.
Yeah, but
No, the issue is the amount of
No,
the amount of
yeah.
impervious pavement,
Right.
and if there's 37 spaces they don't need, plus they also could reduce the amount of parking by, you get 25% compact car spaces, which they show all standard spaces. So what I'm suggesting is there's a lot of impervious pavement that could be reduced. So if you have the zoning.
This is the old chart, but we have just the spaces that we need. I mean, we're not having any extra spaces that we don't need.
Spaces are supposed to have.
You go ahead.
Okay.
Going by what you
Yep.
submitted.
As far as, also, Mr. O'Brien said you can have 25% compact car spaces that would reduce the impervious surface, and we're showing none. We looked at providing compact spaces, which are 8 by 16 instead of 9 by 18. And the total, if we were to take 25% of the parking and reduce to have 25% compact spaces, it's a savings of 4,250 square feet of pavement, which is less than a tenth of an acre. It doesn't seem like a lot of bang for your buck, especially when a 9 by 18 space is reasonable. If you try to park in a 8 by 16, I'm not sure that's desirable. The other comment was you'll need a flood elevation certificate from PZC as well. We understand that.
Yep.
And then this goes to the footprint issue about why your letter says both buildings were reduced.
Yeah.
The footprints haven't. The footprint has been reduced.
From the
Overall
very
square
beginning.
footage has not.
From the very beginning. Okay.
And then that takes care of the memo, the email on the 16th. There was a subsequent email on the, was it the 19th? Yes, March 19th. And it had 3 questions. It says we have no building use. It's going to be a use allowed in the zone. It'll be industrial, warehouse, distribution type building right now, but it will comply with the zoning regulations.
We don't have that one.
Oh, you don't?
No, could you read
Oh.
the questions?
Yeah, okay. It says, Mark, we have no building, we also have no building use. So it's going to be a warehouse, distribution type use, and it complies with the zoning regulations. Will there be floor drains? No. If needed, we'll have to come back. The only instance where I could see a floor drain is if you have a bathroom. Sometimes in a facility, they'll put a floor drain in case there's a toilet issue, but that goes to the sanitary sewer. So right now, there's no floor drain shown in the warehouse.
So, Madam Chair, on the site plan they submitted dated February 22nd, they say required spaces 481, provided 518. So I'm just taking it off what you've submitted.
Yeah, Jessica will look, that could be an error, because we went through that today, so I'll have to recount them, but we don't have additional parking spaces.
We'll supplement. Mav, if you're going to close it tonight, I guess we can't supplement, but we'll rerun the numbers if we can before the end of this meeting.
Yeah, Jessica's going to count them.
Count them right now.
Okay, yeah. And then, then he had processing of chemicals, question mark. There will be no processing of chemicals here.
Okay.
So that kind of answers the questions. We'll just definitively confirm the parking spaces. And that's all I have.
Sure.
Do we want Rachel to speak at all?
I just want to confirm, if I can, we have a letter from our soil scientist, Mr. Davison, that was in response to some of the questions that were raised earlier about how soils were delineated. I'm not sure whether this was in the record, if this was submitted. This was his March 5th. I'll provide a copy here, but if it doesn't need to be stamped as a new exhibit, then that's fine.
I don't have one for March 5th. We didn't have the March 19th one either.
The March 19th one was a supplemental email I sent Monday, and well, that should be in
Can I
your
approach
list
for a
of
minute?
Yes, you
documents
may.
today.
Do you want to?
Sure. We got a lot of paper, but.
It was just a simple email.
Oh, no, that's fine. Yeah, that's
Asking
good.
those 3 questions.
No, that's perfect. Thank you.
Just answer those.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you need this?
No, I don't. She might, yeah. Thank you. You answered them.
Okay, so maybe I better read this one into the record then, if you say you don't have it. March 5th, it's to Jeffrey Board, who was here. previous things, and it just says, "Dear Mr. Board," and it's from Eric Davidson, and it says, "At the request of the Commission, I'm providing herein additional details regarding the method by which wetlands were delineated at the site. The wetland delineation work was done by Registered Soil Science in accordance with state regulations as described in State of Connecticut general statutes," and he cites the general statutes. "In Connecticut, wetlands are defined by soil type, specifically soil drainage class, which occurs across the topo sequence from wet to dry. The wetland boundary at this site defines the transition between moderately well-drained soils, which are non-wetland, and poorly drained soils, which are wetland. The non-wetland soils, i.e. moderately well-drained, consisted of Elm Ridge and Ludlow soils. The wetland soils, i.e. poorly drained soils, consist of Skidco and Shaker soils." That's probably appropriately named, right? While wetter soils are present, i.e. very poorly drained soils, they lie deeper within the wetland as opposed to along the wetland-upland interface. To define the wetland boundary between these soil types, auger holes were dug upslope and downslope of the wetland boundary. Holes were dug along the slope in a transect, with each hole moving upslope and downslope, respectively, until the wetland boundary is defined closely between two auger pits. An example of two bordering wetland and upland soil profiles taken in the central wetland system at flag 8-11 are as follows. He provides the details, and then it says, "As you can see, the non-wetland soil profile is moderately well-drained. It includes features within 2 feet but does not have a reduced matrix. The wetland soil profiles show a reduced matrix and features within 20 inches of the soil surface. This methodology was utilized at each flag location across the entire site in order to define the wetland boundary in accordance with the state statutes." Respectfully submitted, Eric Davidson. So, no, we didn't have it, for the record, so thank you.
Do you have anything else? Do you have anything else? No. Okay. All right. Hello again. Rachel Highland, BL Companies. I'm a project scientist, a certified associate ecologist, and a wetland professional in training. So just kind of going to go over how the new design impacts the wetlands. We've already gone over that it's a significant reduction in direct impact, and all of our direct impacts are due to roadway crossings. We no longer have any parking lot or building directly impacting wetlands. Just to kind of further delve into that, 0.55 acres are permanent impact due to the roadway crossings, and 0.17 are temporary. So the impacts have been minimized significantly. And what we did was we used to have a very large wetland creation area. And as we established last time, that would entail cutting down existing mature forest, replanting it, and hoping to establish a forested wetland, which I believe you had asked, how long is that going to take? And it's going to take a while. So what we did, since we decreased our impacts so much, I felt that it was better to kind of focus on leaving the forest in place that's there. It's mature forest. There's no need to cut it down to create new wetlands if we're reducing our impacts this much, and instead focus on the temporary impact areas that need to be cleared and grubbed for the construction on site. We're going to reforest those, and additionally we're going to focus on new areas that are going to be cleared or are currently ag field, and we're going to forest those with native species. I planted this site a lot. There are over 500 trees proposed, I believe, and something on the order of almost 1,000 shrubs. So it's big. And the plants could obviously be spread out more than what I've shown. I just kept them within the LOD so that we're not encroaching anymore on upland review areas or into vernal pool buffers. Kind of part of the reason why I wanted to reforest it, in addition to, not knocking down existing forest, was because vernal pools require forested habitat during pretty much the most of the year when they're not breeding. So since there's so much ag field on site, that's limiting their upland habitat to begin with. And granted, the ag field is where we're planning to do a lot of our development, but in the areas where we can, we're going to plant it so that they have that appropriate upland habitat surrounding the development. And I mean, they don't take up a lot of space, frogs and salamanders, so even if it's a small sliver, they can utilize it. It's protection from, hawks or something like that. It's gonna give them the cover they need. So that's kind of the thought process behind that. And that, for the most part, covers the main differences from the wetland standpoint.
I just want to read a letter we did get. It was an email from a Pamela Schweitzer. Or is that Pamela from our? That's our Pamela. Oh, it was from Carol Hanlon to Roger on March 17th. She said she was just made aware of the proposed improvement, which is directly behind us and abuts essentially 3 sides of the property located at 1683 King Street, which is owned by Interlocking Connections LLC. Please note that no one from the project development team reached out to us as abutters, as was stated in the JI. The impact that their proposed construction parking lot driveways will have on our property could be potentially devastating to our use. I wanted to bring this to your attention as the light spillage, in their words, directed from their site and away from King Court would be redirected toward the south and west, directly onto our property, potentially rendering it unusable.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Could you identify which parcel the owner resides at?
1683?
1683
Yeah. King Street?
King Street.
Yeah, I didn't look it up yet either, but I'm sure you must have sent out.
We noticed it as required.
Yeah. So just to bring it to.
And just to clarify, the concerns were primarily with respect to light pollution?
No, this is, yeah, light, no,
Light
It's pretty
spillage.
much like,
Light spillage.
light spillage up.
Okay.
But I know you just did mention, you're putting in some different kind of lighting in that. I know you did address that at one of our meetings, the lights.
No, I don't think it
No.
refers to light.
Light-
It says
light-
as the
light
light spillage
spillage.
in their
Their
words.
words.
I
They're
guess, whatever word should
redirecting
be.
the lights
Lights.
from King Court onto this person's property.
And I just want to make sure I'm clear, but we're not talking about anything regarding runoff. We're just talking about like illumination.
I'm not quite sure.
I'm not sure. I'm thinking, yeah.
Okay. All
The
right.
the way I read it, it was some
Okay.
sort of pollution.
I just don't have it in front of me, so I wanted
you
to make
wanna
sure I
read it?
caught
You
that.
can read it. Yeah.
We'll take a look at it, sure.
Yeah. You may, yeah, sure.
It says light spillage, so I'm
So-
assuming they're
The way
talking
it
about
reads to
any
me
runoff.
is that it would be water flow.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, runoff of some
A
sort.
light spillage of continuing
Bring
flowing
forward
water
Which makes their
being
property unusable.
redirected. Right.
Yeah,
it's spelled
Some-
Is that it's gonna- yeah,
That's what it says.
yeah. Because then it makes their property unusable. So it's,
And illumination wouldn't,
wouldn't do that,
right,
so,
unless they're growing mushrooms.
yeah, that's true.
we did notify that person of the public hearing tonight and said she could come if she wanted to, so,
Okay,
in addition.
maybe she's
Oh,
here.
okay.
Just to take note of that, that's all.
Sure. I think the stormwater management improvements that we're proposing speak for themselves as to how the water is going to be directed on site. And I think that it's pretty clear that we're not directing runoff to Kings Court. So I think we'll let our material stand, and if there's specific questions from the concerned party, then we're happy to answer them as necessary.
Oh, he brought up the property.
Donna, are they required to, I think the biggest
They
issue
did
is
reach out to him.
They did,
Yeah,
Yeah.
they did, said they have
Saying
record of it.
1683 King Street.
Yeah. King
Yeah.
Street,
King
Well,
Street,
we certainly aren't directing any water onto King Street either.
yeah.
yeah. Looks like a gray house.
It's a large parcel of land that goes back quite a bit, and then it has a house near the street and has a red barn.
Yeah,
Yep, yep.
exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
We're, as far as stormwater, we're not increasing the rate of stormwater off the site. I mean, there's going to be no adverse
You're not
impacts
going up.
downstream.
You're going the other way, I think.
So, no, I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. And I just want
Yeah.
to give you some
Yeah.
concluding observations, and then we're going to make our experts available for any questions that you might have and try to give you answers to the extent that they're requested. So just to go over the site in an overview here, this site has been extensively farmed and cultivated, particularly its wetland areas, for over 65 years. Certainly not the entire site, but this has been an active farm field for many decades. The property is in an area that's been specifically identified for development under POCD, and a prior residential zone change was denied. So it just underlines the fact that the town has perceived this at the commission level to be a site that's suitable for industrial development. As our own resurvey shows, this property has unique challenges. There's a lot of wetlands that nobody even knew were here, and we brought those to everybody's attention. And yet I think it's important to note that the applicant and their teams put together a proposal that really utilizes the site in an efficient way with a relatively low intensity development plan. And I know that some people might find that difficult to believe, but if you look at the plan of conservation and development, this property is identified as one of, I don't know how many properties, but there's 260 some odd acres that are identified as vacant I-1 industrial land in town. So this property makes up almost half of the vacant I-1 land in town. And the number of square feet that they propose as the maximum potential yield under the POCD is something like 5.7 million square feet of building. And we're proposing about 600,000. And we're only about 50% of that total maximum potential. So if you think about those numbers, the applicant's shown a lot of restraint in terms of what the market could bear and what really would be attractive. You talk about Amazons, you talk about companies that want distribution. Those are million square foot buildings. Please, ma'am.
That's great that you've looked at our plan of conservation and development, because that's important. A lot of developers don't do that, and that's greatly appreciated. But you have to keep in mind that that's separate from wetlands.
Absolutely, and I think that we've tried to address all the wetlands issues. Part of this, you understand, the public's had a lot of interest in this application. There's a lot of sentiment, a lot of people worried about how this is going to impact their neighborhood. I think one of the things that we just want to underline is there's not a lot of places in town to do this kind of development, and that the reason that this was chosen as an explanation, this is part of the reason that this site was chosen. This is why the build out is what it is. But I absolutely appreciate that that's not one of your considerations for approval or denial. So just again, it's consistent with the POCD. No variance is required whatsoever for the proposed plan. And out of approximately 33 acres of wetlands on the site, just over 0.7 are going to be directly impacted. So that's less than 2% of the total wetlands on site. And as Ms. Carlson pointed out earlier, this is all, particularly, these are impacts that can't be avoided to the extent that they are road crossings. So one of the things that I think is important to note is that in 2008, this agency approved another development that I alluded to earlier, which was a much larger development that included more land that's not part of this application to the north. And as a result, we don't have the ability to use those same driveways that were proposed under that application. And that application, the driveway scope, I would say, from my non-professional perspective, is very similar in scope to what was approved prior. So they've made significant efforts over the course of this hearing to reduce their plan in terms of the total square footage, and also to try to address all the concerns that have risen, reasonable concerns that they've tried to provide accommodation, and also just to make sure that this is a good site and it doesn't impact any of the wetlands in an adverse way.
Well, you're just impacting a small amount of wetlands on the parcel. Will you be creating the equal amount on the parcel, the new wetlands? Usually people do that when they take away wetlands?
So the Army Corps used to require things like, like-kind additions and substitutions. They don't really do that much anymore. Now they want money more than anything.
Oh, I know, but
Yeah.
usually when someone comes before us and they're disturbing or taking out totally the wetlands, they offer a plan of where they're going to put new wetlands to equal the amount taken away.
So I'm going to defer to BL to give you an explanation of what they're doing to that extent.
Yeah, they had proposed that originally, but that's what she just spoke on.
Right, Rachel can come back up and explain. I believe
Just with all the changes, I want to make sure
yeah.
that
Well, I'll
it's
let
still
Rachel
on the
answer that
table.
since she's the expert.
I think the short answer is you're not creating any new wetlands. You're enhancing the existing wetlands based upon what was presented.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yes, so you're correct. We are no longer proposing new wetland creation areas. Like I said, because some of the best areas to do that are currently mature forest. And it doesn't make sense to cut down forest to try and regrow new forest. And the existing areas on site, we're trying to enhance by reforesting, mostly for the vernal pools. And the reason we're not trying to create additional wetland habitat adjacent to those vernal pools is because that's really seen as a negative impact to the vernal pools. You want to try and leave the area surrounding a vernal pool as intact as you possibly can. So.
I have one more question while you're here.
Sure.
On the plans, it showed seed mix. Mm-hmm. Is that wetland seed mix?
So it depends on the location. I believe we have a conservation seed mix throughout the majority of the site. In the wetland buffers, I think we have a wetland seed mix or some mix of a wetland seed mix, conservation seed mix.
Okay, thank you.
It would be for Rachel.
Oh, sure.
On the south side of King Court, the back side of some residents' backyards, from that area to the new road and the small building, I haven't been back there, but I think it's a hill.
It's sloped, I believe.
Okay.
It's more gradual, and it's already, for the most part, forested, I believe.
Okay, so that's my question. What is it? What's the condition, and what are you doing with it?
So I believe that the landscapers actually proposed a pretty good vegetative buffer in that area to kind of beef up the natural buffer existing between those people's backyards and that roadway.
Okay, so there's.
That was the point I brought up earlier. You don't show any of the existing vegetation. You just show it as a blank, and then you show a row of planted trees along your driveway. And so that was the question that you're going to need to. And actually, when you get the planning and zoning, it does require that you actually show all mature trees on the site.
I can answer that, Michelle Carlson. The board that I have up, which you don't see on your screen, that just shows the town wetlands. On our property, halfway into the property along the backside, the south side of Kings Court, is treed and forested. We weren't going to touch that. We want to leave that alone. Then the second half of it, we will be required by planning and zoning to plant that 100-foot buffer. And so that's what we will do.
Okay, so there shouldn't be any chance of erosion.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Any other questions for Ms. Highland?
Come back up if I have to.
She'll be available. I just wanted to make sure.
Thanks, Rachel.
So this is probably appropriate time to go to the public, and then they can come back at the end.
I'm basically done. I just want to make one last point, if I can. So the proposed application, this is a quote from one of the reports you already have in your possession, but the proposed application, inclusive of the stormwater management system, is designed to be in compliance with the current Town of Enfield inland wetlands and watercourses regulations, the Town of Enfield zoning regulations, the 2002 State of Connecticut guidelines for soil erosion and sediment control, the 2004 State of Connecticut stormwater quality manual, and State of Connecticut DOT drainage manual. So these were all considerations that were taken into account, and this entire plan is based around these regulations and to comprehensively address them. And with that, I'm happy to let you direct the course of the rest of the hearing.
have to turn my microphone on. Oh, thank you.
Did we get a count on the parking spaces?
Oh, yeah, she's still counting. Oh, okay, thanks.
Michelle Carlson. I don't have an official count. I don't want to be flying, I'd say, give you a number that's wrong off the cuff. If you are correct, we will reduce the parking area up above that we added above the large format warehouse, the 500,000 square foot where we move that parking lot up into that upland area. I don't want to give an incorrect
Number.
response.
We could make that as a condition.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so we have one person on the sign-up sheet, Michael Shaw, 29 King Court. What did he say? Oh. State your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Michael Shaw. I have testified here before. I'm at a loss that they don't understand the topography of the area with the hydrology that's going to be coming to their site. In past testimony, I have showed all the way from where they put a sign off of 91 for sale right by the cattails, all the way through to Bowens Brook in the south. You stand on Route 5 and look down, you'll see the water that runs from all that area. And it's a pretty fast stream right now with the rain we had. There's a lot of water that runs through there. And they're really underestimating the water that's going to come to their site. Where they plan to put the building, you got water coming from Weymouth, Mullen, right through that farmland. That farmland hasn't been farmed in at least 5 years. There was all vegetation on there. It was trying to rebuild itself back up. But we can't tell him what to do with his property. We can make sure he doesn't touch the wetlands, but what he does to his property, he's allowed to do. But he's keeping that as farmland. He wants you to believe he hasn't farmed that since he owned it. That's been barren. And in a 5-year plan, there should be something there, and it's not. So just to bring you up to speed on that, I don't think they're actually telling you the truth when it comes to hydrology. They sat here and saw what I showed them on the topography, where that water's coming from. On Mullen Road, you have the people that are doing the mulch operation. When they were there was never a vernal pool there. If you go there now, it's bigger than Olympic swimming pool. That water just runs right in the front, and it just builds up right there. And then it heads down to the end of King Court. So that water all is there. When the farmer had it, right between his fields, he knew where to plant it. He didn't put any irrigation pipes up there. He used the water that was there, whether it was surface water or groundwater. Lots of water for his fields. So just to let you know that I don't agree with their hydrology whatsoever, and I'm speaking for Mother Nature, that's for sure. Well, thank you, and thank you all for serving on the committee.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Is there anybody else that would like to come and speak? One last time, anybody else want to speak? Seeing none, would applicants like to come back
any further?
for anything further? I did have these questions from John.
We can go through those.
Yeah. We did have a memo from Mr. Kabibo on March 16th. He talked about some dimensions should be added for the culverts. It says a box culvert cross-section had been added to plan sheet D N10, and the dimensions should be added for the culvert crossing. So that would be something to do. You reduce the driveways.
No,
Oh,
actually,
wait.
but there's more to that one.
Let me read the more.
This is the plan. The plan views note what are assumed to be inside culvert opening dimensions, but the wall thickness is not noted. Additionally, wing walls are proposed at the culvert ends, but the only detail for a wall is the modular wall on plan sheet DN-10. All walls proposed on the site to be modular walls.
Did this go to, this,
I don't have that.
this didn't go to them.
Just came to us this week.
Did they get a copy of this? It doesn't
Yeah,
look like it.
that was just updated by John, so those are those comments
They
as
haven't
of
actually seen it.
Friday.
No.
The 16th, yes.
Yeah, this is as of Friday the 16th. It doesn't appear that it was sent to you.
So they would, they would get that, and they would have to submit that information with their final plans.
Okay.
Should you choose to approve it. One other housekeeping thing is on the plans that were submitted this time, it refers to the detailed plans at the end, and they're on the cover sheet, but there's 6 pages missing, so I don't know whether you eliminated 6 pages and didn't change the cover, or what you did.
No.
So, on the front, it says site details D1 to D19. They only go D1 to D12. So, or D13. So there's no 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So we don't know whether you just left them off or you forgot to change the cover.
They just put revised. Never noticed that. Yeah, it only goes to 13. Okay.
Cover.
Another item he mentioned was the driveways have been reduced from the 32 to 30-foot width as previously recommended. It was noted that the zoning information on sheet SP-0 has not been revised to reflect the reduction of pavement from the narrow driveways. So that would have to be done. When the town reconstructed Mullen Road, we impacted slivers of federal wetlands along the edges of the road. Because of these federally defined wetland areas, the town was required to acquire a permit from the United States Army Corps of Engineers based on federal website, has a website. It also appears there are some federally defined wetland areas proposed to be disturbed by this design. Have you applied for a permit?
Do you want me to answer now?
If you know.
What? So far, everything you're mentioning, there's nothing there that, additional detail to the culverts will be part of, our construction documents and
Yep.
more detail that we'll have to do. We know we have to go get a 401 water quality cert from the Connecticut DEP and a permit from the Corps, but we can't go to them until we have local approval.
Yeah, okay. The stormwater management report does not indicate that through the proposed detention improvements, there will be a 0 increase in peak stormwater runoff from the subject site as required under zoning regulations. That's zoning, but, yeah. Previously engineered asked if the proposed site work will require bringing in any fill materials, and I believe you said you're not. If from the site does not require importing fill materials, if the site does require importing fill materials, material testing should be required considering the proximity of the existing wetland areas to some of the proposed fill areas. If the design engineer did any site grading calculations for the proposed cut and fill section quantities, those should be submitted. I did not notice any grade cut fill computations in the plans or submitted separately. And the last one was the detailed cross-sections for the concrete sidewalks and concrete monolithic curb and sidewalk on plan sheet D9 should be revised to show a minimum concrete depth of 5 inches to meet standard minimum. Yeah.
Michelle Carlson, again,
Yeah.
PL Companies, these are all housekeeping,
Big
planning,
pieces.
zoning,
Yep.
no
Just to make
no
sure you're
issues with
aware.
anything.
Yeah,
Correct.
didn't
Yep.
want you to be.
Thank
Do you know if
surprised.
if you're going to be bringing in Phil?
Well, you'd be bringing in, material for pipe bedding, roadway base. I mean, that material's gonna be coming in. There'll be some structural fill, but it all has to meet the specifications. And, we can most certainly make sure there's nothing. It'll be from approved facilities as required.
Will be tested ahead of time.
Absolutely, yes. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Did you have more to?
Mark Fontaine, I'm
Yep.
the principal of DF Realty. Just, if you don't have any more questions, I just had a few closing comments.
Anybody have any questions?
I don't have any
Not
further.
at this moment.
One, I'd like to thank the committee for its time and feedback. We've put a tremendous amount of effort into and expense into ensuring that the parcel is developed in an environmentally conscious way while also still being marketable. We have tried to put together a first-class team of experts that have been working together and have created what we believe is a very well-designed project that will benefit the town significantly. We truly also believe that, although it's taken a long time to get here, the result is a balanced, well-thought-out, expertly engineered development that complies with all of the town's and the state's regulations. Just a few things. One, the parcel was farmed in 2016 by Baggett Farms. The only season that it has not been farmed was last season when we were in this process. So it has been actively farmed. If the commission deems it prudent, we are open to making the inclusion of the compact car spaces a condition of approval. Other than that, that concludes our presentation, and we look forward to being a good neighbor and a valued addition to the town.
Thank you.
Make a motion to close this.
Yeah, I do think you have been very helpful and listened to the people and listened to us and the engineers and everybody and tried to come back with solutions to a lot of the things we've asked you, so I do appreciate that. And thank you very much for that.
All right, I make a motion that we close the public hearing for IW number 5850 King Street.
I second.
Roll call?
Donna?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Virginia, yes. Carrie Ann?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Marcy?
Yes.
6 in favor, motion passes. The public hearing for IW 5850 King Street, application for proposed development consisting of the 2 buildings, is now closed. So the next steps would be the
I think with
discussions and,
I was going to say, I think with all the new materials and you know, like, we want to do a adequate review of everything that we've been given as, from staff and from the applicant. I'd propose that while it's closed, we take a bit of time to just make sure we're all on the same, we all have gone through all of our drawings and materials.
You're also going to have to figure out who was here for what meetings and who and those commissioners who want to vote. I mean, some of the commissioners here tonight might not have been here for all public hearings.
I did miss a couple of the meetings, but I have watched all of them.
Right. So just make sure of that. So you might want to schedule your vote in 2 weeks.
I think that's a good idea. We do have a lot of material to read and think about, so we could come back and discuss it.
Yeah.
And then make our decisions and not rush to a decision. I think that's a good idea. So is that a motion?
I will make a motion to table our vote until our next meeting.
Second.
Okay, that would be, our next meeting would be Tuesday, April 3rd, just for the record. Roll call?
Donna?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Virginia, yes. Carrie Ann?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Marcy?
Yes.
6 in favor, motion passes, so we will table this to our next meeting of April 3rd, 2018. And we thank you very much for all your input and
Thank you, everybody.
support, and everybody, the public, for coming and listening and giving your concerns. Thank you. A lot of paperwork. Jen, do you want this back? Signing. While everybody's moving. Yeah, okay, that's good. Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know, I get it. Yeah, no more discussions on this. Okay, so, next on the agenda is new business, seeing none. Applications to be received, we have a site plan review for IW 588, 243 Shaker Road. Application for modification of wetland permits for the construction of 3 additional sand towers. Yankee Casting Company Incorporated, owner applicant, map 095, lot 006, industrial 2, I2 zone. Do we have that?
Yep. We have the materials right here for you guys. I don't know if you want me to give it to you right now or after the meeting.
You can give it to us after the meeting.
Okay.
So those applications are considered received for tonight,
Yep.
so we can get to study them for the next 2 weeks.
In with our other materials.
In with the other materials.
Back to 0 King Street, I do have one quick question.
Yeah. Put your mic in.
Can we go and actually visit it?
Yep.
I mean, is,
Not as a group, but
no,
two.
I know that.
It has to be 2 commissioners go to the site.
I would go with you.
Yeah. And then you have to come back. Well, can they come back and tell us because the hearing's closed?
Yeah, as long as they report back at a meeting.
So you have to report back at the next meeting.
But is there a way to get onto the site?
Oh,
Because the road isn't built yet.
You just have to walk it.
I'm sure any of
You-
the residents.
You'd have to get permission to.
Well,
You have to get permission from the property
Or
owner.
you can
You have to
go
notify the
behind
planning
one
office.
corporate way.
Yeah, and
that
you have to
accurate?
notify people you're going.
I thought it was part.
Well, the property owner, which property are we talking about?
585 King, the one we just did.
0 King.
Oh, 0
King,
King
Zing Zero
Street.
King.
Yeah, the property owner, every applicant in their application grants permission for the commission to go on the property. So it's more of a courtesy if
To
you're
let 'em know
letting
you're
them
going.
know. If you have your identification, that's important so they know who's tromping around their property. The important thing is that if you do make a site visit and there's information you want to share, that you share it for
You'd
the
have to
whole
report
group
back that
and a
you-
public meeting.
To everybody that you went on a certain day, a certain time, and what you observed.
All right. Can I call Marcy and?
Oh, yeah,
Well, you don't have any
Well, that-
information
that-
that somebody else doesn't.
Just can't go past that talk.
If you want an assistant planner to go with you,
Yeah.
Jen loves those visits.
Jen likes
Your Jen loves walking through muddy fields.
Okay,
We
so
once had her inspect a gravel pit in high heels one day. She wasn't too happy about that.
she doesn't do that anymore. Next on the agenda is determination of need, which I don't believe we have any. We did have the Scantic River one, but that, now what happened with that? We did get,
The DEP one?
yeah,
So what happened was that the applicant submitted something that said that they didn't have to come here because it was
Yeah, I saw that.
DEP. So Jen wrote to DEP and said, "Oh, could you send us the statutory reference to that so that we can close our file?" Well, the statutory reference says that the local inland wetland agency can review it and make an advisory report to DEP. So we wrote back the other day and said, that's what we want to do. So come in,
tell us what
present
you're
what you're going to do. The commission will then, because they say, so even though you don't have any jurisdiction, we're always happy to hear your thoughts. But what she gave me, or gave us, was, a thing that said you have an advisory role. So, I mean, it's perfectly within your jurisdiction to ask them to come in and explain what they're doing and provide them any guidance that you have. So that's where we are on that.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I did see that.
And there's also another one that came up just the last couple of days. Did you bring that information? The one with the...
We don't currently have information on it, but basically on Hazard Avenue, or on the corner. On the corner of Hazard Avenue, and I can't remember what the other street is, but Eversource is trying to put in a utility conduit in, and originally we thought they would be digging up part of the wetlands to install this conduit, but apparently they have some sort of equipment that allows them to, I guess, bore the area under the soil without disturbing the topsoil. So we told them to apply for a determination from you guys, and that should be coming in any day now.
Okay,
So
good, thank you.
So I don't know whether you have 2 or 3 enforcement actions, which
Yep,
I
those
don't know.
next.
You could take them up under this section because you might determine that they should come in and apply, or you could take them up someplace else. But
No, this is
I
fine.
don't know if any of those people are here.
Yeah, it's, the first one I have is 1 Moody Road.
Is there anybody here from 1 Moody Road?
Oh, good. Hi, could you state your name and address for the record?
Michael Solinsky.
Hi. So let me see, this is Michael Selinsky and Douglas Fournier, Fox Hill Service Station owners. Upon, there's been complaints on the property that it was found to have numerous vehicles, including construction equipment, box trucks, trailers, numerous cars and junk materials on the property. They gave you a cease and desist on 12/18/17 was issued. And on 12/22, a notice of violation was issued for operating a junkyard. You called them. On 12/26 and 1/2, reporting that it was in the process of trying to clean the property up. On February 13th, some of the vehicles have been removed, but there's a large quantity of junk materials that are still present on the property. And they asked on 3/20 that a letter was sent to the property owners advising them that their property would be discussed today, and requested that you come, which you did. Thank you very much. And it has been re-inspected several times over the past few weeks, and it was found that cars have been removed from the property and have been replaced with others, and many of the trailers and other materials have not been removed from the wetland area. This was from Rick. He's our enforcement officer, so thank you for coming.
Yeah, so, I got the first letter on December 22nd or 3rd that I received it anyways. And since then, I've been removing the cars from the property. Been working against the weather, but
Yeah.
if you look there tonight, you probably won't see any cars. I know you won't see any cars. I talked to Rick today about 2:30, and I told him I was going to be here. And he said at the time there was concern because, like you said, there was some cars in the front there. And I told him those cars were slated to go. They didn't leave yet. So at 4:30, they were gone. So as far as the property itself, the stuff on the ground and the other stuff down there, now that the weather is starting to improve, well, this late in the year, I'm sure it's not going to stick around long. It's in the process of being taken care of. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Kevin?
So, just give us an idea how long you think you're gonna take.
I knew that question was going to come up, but, I would say, next month or so, you should see a drastic difference in the front.
Excellent.
And
Can we just eliminate the so
okay.
in the next month?
Yes. You'll see a drastic difference in the front.
How about we send Rick out to re-inspect in like 30 days from today?
And
Does
I'm
that
always
sound
available
reasonable?
to him. I mean, I get registered letters, but a phone call to me, you can reach me anytime if he has any questions, just like those cars in the front. If I'd known about those, they would have been gone well before now. I understand you have to send a registered letter, but a phone call or a stop in will do wonders.
Yeah, that's just
What
matter
about the
of
junk,
procedure.
though? You got junk. It says, as of February, there's a large quantity of junk
Yeah,
material.
so there was stuff on the ground, but, I'm working against the snow and everything else, and once it snows, it takes a while to go away. The
So
stuff
we're
on the
going to see
ground.
progress on that going too, besides vehicles?
Yes, well, that's the next thing. Like I told Rick way back in, it might have been the week after I got the letter. The first thing was the cars, and then I was going to go from there.
That's perfectly fine. The weather is kind of dampening a lot of.
Yeah, well, now it's, even
way
with
it
the
is,
storm
so.
coming, it's not going to last, so.
Yeah, that's good. It's going to get nice weather soon. But thank you, I appreciate your taking care of it right away, and
All right.
thank you for coming.
I just had a question.
Sure.
I think you said you weren't aware of the cars in front, or if you had been
I
aware.
wasn't
Are you
aware of the
not
cars
on
in the
site?
front,
Oh,
but I
okay.
wasn't aware that you were
was a problem.
concerned about the cars in the front.
Yeah.
Those cars were slated to go, but they didn't go because somebody was going to pick them up, didn't pick them up when they said they were.
Yeah. That's good. Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate you coming. There was another one for Simon Road. Is there anybody here from 45? Yeah, hi. So this one is for Simon Road on 1016. The planning office received a complaint regarding digging and construction that was taking place to the rear of the property located at 45 Colonial Drive. Upon inspection, it was determined that the property owner of Simon Road, property map 60, lot 0002, had dug out an area and installed cement footings, in designated wetland. The property owners are James and Rebecca Strempler? I'm sorry if I said that wrong. 221 North Road, Broadbrook, Connecticut, who owned adjacent property on North Road in East Windsor. A cease and desist was issued on 10/17/17, and in speaking with the property owner, he was advised to come before us to rectify this issue or to file an application to come before IWA for review, which had not been done by that date. Mr. Semper was again contacted and will remove the 2 cement footings and replace the soils originally removed to bring the property back to its original condition. And says that you'll come today to talk with us.
Yes, my name's Jim Strempfer.
Hi.
221 North Road, Broadbrook, Connecticut. And I got to this small wooden bridge to we train horses there, and horses don't like to go over bridges and things, and I'm going to put a couple in East Windsor also, because everything we've done is in East Windsor. There's 7 acres there, and there's 7 acres in Enfield. And I broke the law, didn't come before you. The engineer drawing, the surveyor, I would have to have it located on a map. And the cost of all of that, it was so small, and I should have come here, and I didn't. So I said to Rick, I will put it back the way it was, because I really don't want to spend that much money to put this little bridge in. It's nothing you can drive over. It's going to be a wooden bridge to ride horses over. And that's how I came to that point. Yes, it is wetlands. It's wet. It's dry all summer, but it's wet in the spring. It's wet now. And that's what I did. So I want to put it back the way it was, take the pieces of concrete out. I think it's 19 feet long. It's very small. And I don't have to have it there. It is, that was all cleared out from the 60s, and it was a perfect place to put it. But I didn't want to spend $1,500, $1,800 to get the site plan. You know, I have one in East Windsor for the whole farm, but I don't have anything in Enfield, because that's just going to be pasture eventually, and that's why I didn't have any plan. Financially, it wasn't worth it for me to go through all of that. If there's a fine, I'll pay a fine. I want to put it back the way it was.
No.
I know when
just
I do
just
right
for the
and-
future, if you want to make an application, you take graph paper and show where it's going. As long as you give us something that's scalable on a graph paper,
Yeah,
the
just draw it.
commission
It has to be
for a
measured.
Like to work
doesn't have
with
to be an
farmers.
engineered drawing. The commission can waive that requirement if they determine that the scope of the project is such that it doesn't merit an engineered drawing. So you could take graph paper that you get at Michael's and
Just draw it out.
draw it up and come back, and if you wanted to, I don't know, are these horses going to water?
Here's my feeling too, is that at this point,
already
I'd
dug it
rather
up.
see you do that. Digging them up is going to cause more damage.
Yeah.
And I think even just having a horse crossing without this during the wet times is going to cause damage. So if you can,
Just draw it on a piece of paper.
my suggestion would be draw it on a piece of paper to scale and submit an application. I would rather see you do that and be able to put this in than to go through the expense and potential damage to the wetlands in digging this up and creating more of an issue.
I agree. I think that's the best. And we really do like to work
Yeah.
with farmers.
Oh, yeah.
You know, a lot of pasture land has water in it and ponds, and we don't want to stop you from enjoying farming. We just want to make sure that you don't do any unnecessary harm to any of the water bodies.
I'm so used to the other side. There was nothing there in '05, nothing at all. So the house, the barns, I've gone through this so much for so long, it was like, it's another thing. And you could, for
Well, you
me,
could
the value
always-
was not going to be there.
You could always make an appointment and talk to staff and have them, kind of give you a feel for how you could get it done with the least impact on your time and finances. And that way, I'm sure staff would be very happy to help with you. But you have to make an appointment.
Oh, sure. I've just been to East Windsor. I've never been to Enfield, so I don't know what it's
They're
like.
nice people.
Yeah.
But they're always nice people.
Actually, they're nice people in East Windsor, too.
They're very nice people, yes. After all these years, though, I was getting tired of building permits.
Yeah, but
and-
you can see the light at the end of the tunnel now. So once you get this crossing, you're good to go in both towns.
So I could come and find out what to do.
Yeah.
See if I should go
Yeah,
farther
just
forward.
give them a call and make an appointment so that it'd probably be Jen, but whoever it is can give you their undivided attention, and it will take less time than if you come to the counter and there's 5 other people there.
Okay. Planning department.
She can give you.
Yeah, she can give you
her phone number.
I'll
and
get a
stuff.
phone number, yes.
Yeah.
It's right on your report from Rick. Just
Oh, on the bottom
call
there.
Rick,
Yeah.
Call Rick's number and ask for Jen or Roger, or you can stick with Rick. We don't mind.
I will call and ask and find out what to do next to go forward.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I don't think Rick would be able to help him with wetlands.
It was a
Oh,
joke.
okay.
Forgive
Ask
me.
for Jen. Ask for Jen.
Ask for Jen.
Jen.
Ask for Jen.
Or Michelle.
Or Rochelle. Yeah. He'll be fine.
Okay?
That'll be fine. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next one we have is 57 Kimberly Drive, is owned by Dean and Tracy Clark. Are they happening here? Map 70, lot 0011. On 3/5/18, I received a report of several dump trucks traveling to and from the area of Kimberly Drive. Upon inspecting the area, I found that trucks were dumping materials in the rear of 57 Kimberly Drive. The cease and desist order was issued 3/6/18 to the contractor, WJB Enterprises, and the property owner. On 3/15/18, I met with the property owner, who provided photographs of her rear yard before and during this activity. 2 rows of blocks were placed at the base of the hill of the property, and then fill was dumped to build the hill back up in an attempt to stop the soil from pulling away from the rear of the home. All this work was done without permits. In discussing this issue with Tracy Clark, she asked if she consulted with an engineer regarding this matter, and she said she had not. The rear property line of this property is also within 200 feet of the Scannick River, and a map of that is attached. Also attached is a copy of a GIS topography map that shows that the house is approximately 110 feet, and the rear property line is approximately 90 feet. The river is at approximately 50 feet, which equals a 60-foot drop. No further work has been done at the property since the issuance of the cease and desist, and the property owner has been asked to come before the agency to discuss it. Are they here? Nope. Okay, doesn't appear they're here. So,
Rick hasn't cited them yet, right?
well, they did have the cease and desist.
Did they have a cease and
We do have a cease and desist, so that, I guess the next step is to
Yes.
direct that they submit a plan to rectify the situation.
Correct.
Yeah, there's not much else.
Yeah, because in one of the pictures, it actually shows a, looks like a true railroad tie wall.
Hmm. Right here. Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah, when,
And the fill isn't even that great. It would be classified as clean fill, but that's really not something you want to slide anywhere.
yeah, that's gonna erode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even the silt fences aren't doing too well.
All right, so you'll
what's the next step?
Direct them to submit an application, right?
Well, isn't that what he did? He told them to come for this
them to
meeting.
come, but yeah.
Right, well, we'll reiterate that it was presented to the commission and you supported the decision of your agent.
I would suggest a time
Yeah.
to get the application in, because then you can start finding them if they choose not to work with staff.
Right. The wetlands is a little different from the zoning in terms of what the mechanism is, but we haven't actually fined anybody under wetlands yet.
But you can.
We can. A little different process.
This
but we
one
can.
is really time sensitive. You
Yeah.
want to make sure it gets addressed and handled as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
It's pretty close to the river, and that's a big drop. 60
That is a big
feet.
drop, yeah. Doesn't look very stable right now.
No.
Well, Rick actually went out there the day the trucks were backing in and prevented them from dumping any more and sent them away.
That we know of. That we know of. They could have come back later.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so that's that for that. Any reports from Roger?
The question was asked before by the commissioner about going out and looking at 0 King Street, and actually thinking about that, we've closed the public hearing, and so
That's not-
I don't think that's a good idea to go out there and come back and report. I don't any further, because that if you went out there and you observed something and then you report it to the commission and the applicant doesn't have an opportunity to respond to it. So I would say that any site visit that you would have made to 0 King Street should have been done prior to. So, you know, if you can confine yourself to looking at all of the aerial photographs in the record and so forth. So I did want to correct that earlier discussion.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I was at 100 Hazard Avenue today, the medical building, not today, yesterday. And I was chuckling to myself because they put the snow, they have wooden barriers, you know, that you can park against and that define the roadway. And I never go back there, but it was so busy I had to park in the back. And when I was coming around, I noticed that there's one opening, and you can see all the wetlands. And they pushed all the snow right up into the wetlands. So you might want to, I know Rick is overworked, but you might want to suggest to Rick that when the snow comes, you might want to look at it.
And you know, I sometimes I make light of something that isn't a light issue, but you know, if you look at the old Bernie site, there's wetlands right along 91, and after that was approved, then they put a sort of a lean-to there and had snow plowing equipment right up against the wetlands and everything else, and they plowed all that snow right into the wetlands, and that did get corrected, but that is a significant issue.
Well, that's why everybody's so passionate about the snow, where the snow's going,
Right.
and putting the signs up, because they aren't going to be out there when the
Right.
snowplow guy comes to plow.
But I
their
kind of had some fun tonight. I was like playing the role of Commissioner Smith. Where are you plowing the snow?
And I thought that was great.
We do ask at every meeting, though, every application, where are you putting the snow?
That's because it's important. We want to protect the wetlands.
Yep. Did you have any?
Motion to adjourn in order?
I think so.
I'd like to make a motion to it.
Well, the special meeting now, we will not be having on March 24th, because today was,
Right.
we have a whole today, just so people know, we will not be having that
Right.
meeting.
No, and I thank you, those of you who said you were available. We always like that. We didn't know if it was going to snow tonight. It may snow tomorrow. We, you know, and we had until the 29th. We also wanted to make sure the applicant had ample opportunity to answer all your questions.
Yep. Thank you very much. Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting